I deceived you. I was unfaithful, even with the prince. Forgive me, for heaven's sake," sobbed the young woman, barely recovering from childbirth. Her husband, Charles Mordaunt, upon hearing this, froze as if struck by lightning. His wife's words echoed in his mind, shattering his entire world. The Victorian era was renowned for its strict morals and impeccable etiquette, especially in high society. However, behind the facade of propriety, stories often lurked that would become major scandals. One such drama was the tragedy of Harriet Sarah Moncrieff, whose scandalous divorce from Sir Charles Mordaunt made history and became one of the most talked-about court cases of the time. This case shook the public and put the royal family's reputation at risk. As a young and beautiful Scottish woman, Harriet had everything in her favor: noble lineage, wealth, connections, and captivating looks. Her marriage to Baronet Charles Mordaunt in 1866 seemed like the realization of a dream. They resided in the magnificent Walton Hall, a 72-bedroom mansion, recently restored and steeped in aristocratic grandeur. It seemed that Harriet was destined for a life of luxury and tranquility, but fate had other plans. The couple proved to be of entirely different dispositions. Harriet was young, craving entertainment, social gatherings, and the dazzling company of those revolving around the Prince of Wales. She loved balls, theaters, and receptions, attracting attention with her vivacious charm and beauty. Charles, on the other hand, was a man of traditional values, favoring solitary walks, hunting, and peace. He expected his wife to devote herself entirely to family obligations, but Harriet was not one to submit easily. When Charles embarked on an extended journey to Norway in 1868, Harriet remained in London. Rumors of her late-night visits to Viscount Cole began circulating among the household staff. She was frequently seen at exclusive parties and country estates with influential men of high society. This led to the first serious disputes in their marriage. One day, returning home unexpectedly, Charles caught his wife in the company of the Prince of Wales. Beside her stood 2 white ponies, a gift from the royal guest. Furious, yet unable to challenge the heir to the throne, Charles found another way to express his outrage. He shot the ponies in front of his wife. This act marked the first major event in a series of scandals that would inevitably lead to their separation. In 1869, Harriet gave birth to a daughter, Violet. The child suffered from an eye infection, which raised suspicions about her paternity. Charles was devastated when, in a fit of emotion, his wife confessed that the child was not his, but had been fathered by Viscount Cole. Furthermore, she openly admitted to having had affairs with several other men, including the Prince of Wales himself. This scandal posed a serious threat to the royal family. If Harriet's infidelity were proven, the future king, Edward, would be publicly disgraced. To prevent such a disaster, Buckingham Palace intervened immediately. By order of the court physicians, Harriet was declared mentally unstable. Her condition was labeled as postpartum mania, a diagnosis that, at the time, was nearly a life sentence. She was stripped of her voice, and all her statements were dismissed as the ravings of a woman in a fragile state. The intervention of the royal court and the use of a mental disorder diagnosis were typical strategies of the time to protect the reputations of high-ranking individuals. A woman who confessed to adultery, and worse, implicated the royal family, was far too dangerous to be left at large. She was isolated from society, and any attempt to defend her honor was swiftly crushed by powerful forces. Charles Mordaunt refused to accept this situation and filed for divorce, hoping to involve the prince in the proceedings. However, under pressure from influential circles, the judge refused to consider Harriet's confession, citing her alleged mental instability. In 1875, the court eventually granted Mordaunt's request, but only Viscount Cole was officially named as the guilty party in the adultery. By then, Harriet had already spent several years in a private asylum for the mentally ill, never to return to her former life. Harriet's daughter, Violet, was raised by her maternal grandparents in Scotland. Although she was never introduced at court, her life turned out well. She married in 1890. Charles, despite not considering himself the child's father, provided financial support. After the divorce, he remarried and never saw Harriet again. Harriet remained in seclusion for the rest of her life. Despite the relative comfort of a private institution, her existence was ruined. She avoided the cruel fate of most women accused of immorality, but she lost her freedom, reputation, and family. This case became one of the most infamous divorces in Victorian England. It demonstrated that even status, wealth, and connections could not shield one from the consequences of passion and recklessness in a society where reputation was everything. The story of Harriet Moncrief remains a tragic reminder of how harshly women could be treated in a world where scandals were hushed up and inconvenient individuals were cast away. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next fascinating story.